and hello. Welcome for a new daily ASMR video. The topic for today is about TAT or Transcontinental Air Transport, which was an early American airline founded in 1928. And I found this very interesting map showcasing the roots of the early TAT. And let's have a look over and analyze it, because there are very interesting facts that I found about. Well, this company, which was, I said, started in 1928, revolutionized long-distance travel on United States. One of the key facts is that they're combining daylight air transport with nighttime rail transport. And why? Because back then, in that period, flying overnight during the nighttime was considered dangerous, and that's why you can see these planes here showed on the map. These are the daylight routes. They used planes, and with the dark routes are the nighttime train routes. So if you wanted to travel from New York, for example, to San Francisco or Los Angeles, firstly, during the night, you would embark in a train and travel to Columbus all night. In the morning, you would take the plane, and during the day, the travel will reach Woodward or Winoka Airport. And from here, because it's the next night of your trip, you would take the train to Clovis. And then from Clovis, again, because it's the second day of your travel, with the plane to Los Angeles. So, back then, a journey from New York to Los Angeles lasted 2 or 3 days. Well, the Lindbergh connection, for example, Charles Lindbergh, famous for its transatlantic flight in 1927, was not just a celebrity endorsed in this or a technical advisor, because he was part of the team at TAT. His involvement gave the airline company a strong public image, exactly what they need when they start in 1928. Well, let's have a look over the stops, because the cities, the main city, are these two: New York here and Columbus. So these are the main stops because they are connecting the East Coast with the train, and then from Columbus because it will be the airport where the trip will start or will end with the plane. The next one is Vainoka. Chloe's. And we have Los Angeles or San Francisco. Well, this is the longest trip you could take at that time. They used a three-motor aircraft, the Ford three-motor aircraft, like it's here depicted on the map. This plane was known as Tin Goose for its air travel legs. The three-motor was reliable and sturdy airplane, capable of carrying only 10 to 12 persons. So, in 1928, when this airline started, they used very small planes, but they were considered revolutionizing the air transport, and they only transported 10 to 12 persons. I don't know if the crew was included in this amount of persons. I think yes, and the crew is included, so it was pilot and co-pilot and maybe 10 passengers. One important fact is that back then the plane would travel low altitude and their cabin was not pressurized, meaning flights were quite uncomfortable compared to the modern times. The cost of tickets, now let's have a look, because the cost of tickets, it's another important making this a luxurious airline. So the cost of tickets was about $352. Yeah, it's very hard to write down with the mouse. So $352 at that time, which will be equivalent of modern day $5,000. So it was a very luxury service back then, and only very rich people could afford it. Well, onboard amenities. Well, back then, compared to the modern day, the planes were very simple and the ride was not very comfortable. We take also the planes and the trains. But in terms of luxury, back then it was considered with very high standards, because the first time the passengers were provided with meal services during their flights and sleeper beds on train routes, for example, for Columbus to New York. There were even flight attendants. Although their role was very limited compared to the present days. Well, this is about that, but there was also, because we are living in America back then, let's transpond this in that period. Of course, there were also some competitors, indeed, because that was mostly aimed to make a transcontinental flight and had this approach. It faced competitions from Boeing Air Transport. So let's write down here. Boeing Air Transport. Right. So they had competitions, right? Good. From Boeing, the giant. Well, back then was not a giant. Well, Boeing Air Transport, which also had coast-to-coast air services, plan back then was Boeing Air Transport, but in later cases it would transform in a United Airlines. So later, Paved Air Transport became United Airlines. So very important, this fact. So this was their main competitors of that. Let's use this one. Alright. Good. What happened next? Well, actually, in 1930, merger of that with Western Air Express resulted in creation of Transcontinental and Western Air, or TVA. Well, TVA. Alright. Which eventually became the most iconic Trans World Airlines in that period, under the leadership of nobody else than Howard Hughes. Howard Hughes, the famous engineer and businessman. Well, railroad partnership that partnered with the Pennsylvania Railroad for the railroad routes for the eastern segments of Santa Fe Railway. This will become a hybrid transcontinental air and rail transport. How this impacted the navigation, the air navigation and air transport. Because that only operated only 2 years before it merged, and these routes they came with some technological innovations, because they were early pioneers in starting the air transport evolutions in United States. And the long distance passenger flights, well, these will gave the government some ideas of new improvements and encouraged new reforms in air transportations. Good. Early pilots and stars. Back then, some of the pilots that flew were aviation pioneers themselves with not a very great experience. For example, one of the pilots was Jack Fry, who will later become the president of the TVA, which is when the company emerged. Transcontinental Western Air Transport and Western Air Transport. Good. Now, let's highlight a little bit the routes. Okay, I will use, let's say, so this one. Opacity, let's put 41. And let's use a red color. So, okay, only the flight routes, so not the train routes from Columbus, larger. Right here. Wow, it's too faded. Top right now. Okay. We can see here that we have some planes here to showing exactly the route. Wow. Because this is an old map and it's very wide, that's why it doesn't fit in on a small paper sheet. That's why I use this electronic fashion. Alright, so from Winoka we have a train route, and from here, from Clovis, another plane route to Gallup and Winslow, Kingman, Barstow, and Los Angeles. Right. Well, what I don't know is if these on Barstow are, I think there were plane stops because there were small planes back then, and logically they need to refuel somewhere. And on these points here, location on the map, I think there were small airports or airfields where the planes will land and refuel and then continue their journey, their flight. And San Francisco, good. So we are two main routes from San Francisco to Clovis and from Winoka to Columbus. Well, this was an early hybrid version of transcontinental flights. Well, I presume from Columbus to Winoka it will last one day. The flight with different stops, for example in St. Louis for refueling and in Kansas City for refueling and passengers drop. But even back then, just have a look how many miles a single three-motor plane can cover. So, mostly 1/3 of US territory. Look. So, in one way, so that's why I think, well, the speeds, because it was a three-motor plane, the speeds were very low compared to the present day. But it was very ambitious to have a transcontinental flight company and flight routes back then, even if they were cost a fortune. So try imagine $352 course, it's nothing in the present days. For example, it's a normal ticket for your vacation, but back then it was a fortune. In present day, this $355 would be, with our inflation, $5,000, which is huge amount for present day. Well, very interesting map that I found, and of course I hope you enjoyed this kind of ASMR video. I don't know, I can say hybrid ASMR video between the classic ones with a lot of triggers and this new version of electronic one. Of course, use the comments section below to express your opinion. I'm very curious to find out your opinion. And thank you very much for watching. And until next time, I wish you all the best.